This is Focus with Jack Caudill.
Good evening, I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about suicide prevention. Three guests with us to talk about that. Amber Roduner, she is the clinical supervisor of behavior management systems here in Rapid City. Bridget Marshall, the executive director of Journey On here in Rapid City. And DeCory, the co-founder of the Bear Project on the Pine Ridge Reservation. A little background, September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and the 10th of this month is World Suicide Prevention Day. The CDC says suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States. They say 48,183 people died by suicide in the country in 2021, an estimated 1.7 million suicide attempts in 2021. Nationally, the rate of suicide is 14.04 per 100,000 people. That's in 2020 data. In South Dakota, that figure 23.36 per 100,000. That is 66% higher than the national average. Amber, we're going to start with you looking at the problem of suicide. How bad is the problem here in this area?
I mean, it's something that pretty much every person that we have come in our doors at least alludes to a little bit, and we'll talk about in terms of maybe having thoughts of suicidal ideation, or maybe it's as simple as, you know, I just don't want to be here. And sometimes it's more extreme, but it's definitely prevalent even in kids as young as 6 and 7, unfortunately.
Now, Bridget, Journey On has taken over the job that the Front Porch Coalition was doing as far as suicide prevention, dealing with the aftermath of that here in Rapid City. From what you guys are seeing, how is the problem here in Rapid City? How severe is it here?
I think one life lost is one too many. This year has been a little bit better to this point, but it's not till the end of the year that we have our total numbers. However, it's an epidemic everywhere, and it's an issue that really needs to be talked about and addressed.
Now, Tiny, you deal with the situation down on the Pine Ridge Reservation. The numbers there higher than they are in most of the rest of the state.
Yes.
How bad is the problem that you're seeing down there?
We average sometimes 7 kids a day with ideations or with attempts. And we send a lot of them up here to Rapid City, and I'm sure you might, Rhonda might get them. Mm-hmm. We send a lot up here. We send them to Rapid, we send them to Billings, Montana, wherever we can find a bed. So it's high, and it hasn't let up. And we count every one of our tribal members, whether they die in Oklahoma or North Carolina, because we're bringing them home to bury them. So the seriousness of suicide is that it's almost, in a lot of the homes, they're talking about it. We've had second generations now of families that we're dealing with. And it's an epidemic. And COVID and the pandemic, it didn't help us at all. In fact, it just really took us away, took away a lot of the energy and brought in more depression for our young people.
Now, the state says that suicide is the leading cause of death in the ages of 10 to 29. Why so many young people?
Well, I can't speak for the entire state. I can speak for the reservation. We're boots on the ground. We're 24/7. We are not an 8 to 4:30 job, and we try to find the resources as we can. These young ladies have it lucky. I mean, they have resources so many resources here in Rapid City. We don't have that on the reservation. And so you come through and you see a lot of poverty, but we're beautiful in our culture. We're strong in our culture, but we don't have a lot of businesses on the reservation. So you're fighting for a job. You have high school, college kids trying to get a job where the grandmas and grandpas are already working there. And so we asked them, they asked, where is the hope? Teach me, because I can't see it. And one example is we can take a child from a house, not a home, a house where there's 19, 20 people living in that house. And so we can get them out of there, get them to IHS, and they'll refer him and they'll bring him to Rapid City up here to Monument. Then from there, they'll keep him 3, 4, 7 days. But we still have to take that child back into the home that we removed the child. So it's tough. It's just this vicious circle. And sometimes, you can make it there in time, and sometimes you can't. You know, we was looking at our stats coming up, and you talk about in 2018 we had 472, and our reports for 2022 we had 1,035 attempts and ideations, and that's a 200% jump in that. So,
Bridget, what are you seeing with young people here in Rapid City?
I agree that there is a loss of hope. I think that there are, there's so many challenges to being a young person, and there were in our day, and it seems that there's even more now. And so, I do some education in with young people in some different school settings, and one of the things that I really talk about is healthy coping skills, and how to recognize if you're struggling, and for a friend to recognize, if I'm a young person, they're more likely to talk to their friends than they are necessarily their parents. So helping kids see when their friends are struggling, and then to emphasize to them that you have to get an adult that's trusted to help that individual, and getting them to speak out and saying you can never keep something like that a secret, even if your friend has sworn you to secrecy.
Amber, what is the youngest ages? How young of kids do you deal with when you're talking about the topic of suicide?
I mean, we've had kids as young as 6 and 7 come in for emergency services, having made a comment of not wanting to be alive anymore, or even sometimes having a plan of how to kind of take their life. And so we're seeing it pretty young.
What are the risk factors? What leads somebody to be at risk for suicide?
So many. Really, truly, it can be anything and everything that causes stress in that person's life, like she was talking about in terms of ability to cope with that. So if they don't have the support system, if something's going wrong at school, something's going wrong at home, they broke up with their boyfriend, whatever that is, there's so many risk factors. And actually what's interesting is there's actually some growing research that also says that, suicide can also just basically happen when those upsets also happen. And so maybe there's not always these warning signs that we're taught to look out for as well. And so, trying to figure out, so what do we do with that? What do we do with it when there's maybe not a warning sign, but we know something upsetting has happened in that person's life? Well, the most we can do is check in on that person, see how are you doing, what's going on? And that can make all the difference.
You're talking about those warning signs. Tiny, what are the warning signs? What are the signs that you see that somebody is in crisis?
They're hungry. Our children are hungry. They're going to school hungry. They're not getting the food. They're not getting the nourishment. They don't have a bed to sleep in. They're sleeping on the floor with a blanket. And if they're not there for supper time, then they have to wait until the next meal is served. And you have grandma struggling, parents struggling. They're cooking out of a pot because it's easier for them to cook soup and to make a big pot of spaghetti and so they can feed their children. 80% of those who've committed suicide had told somebody. They have. 20% is the ones that don't tell anybody. They just up and do it. And you mentioned relationships. Ours is a big problem with relationships. As soon as they break up, one of them either attempts or one of them is successful. And we have a lot of that. And like I said, it's hard getting our kids to school. They have no shoes. They wanna wear Nike shoes like everybody else. Bullying is still a big factor, a target, in kids going to school. They get bullied at school because, hey, I noticed you wore that t-shirt 3 times this week. Well, maybe that's the only t-shirt he has. Or they make fun of the shoes and the kids. And bullying doesn't discriminate, neither does suicide, neither does alcohol. But we also have to look at other factors. We are dealing with meth now. Meth is rampant on the reservation. And now we're dealing with fentanyl. We're dealing with skips, they call it skips, bootleggers. And all of that is piled into one. And then we could look at them and say, gosh, now I know why you want to kill yourself.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll continue our look at suicide in the area when we continue with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. September is National Suicide Prevention Month. Bridget Marshall is the Executive Director of Journey On here in Rapid City. You guys took over the role that the Front Porch Coalition had. What does your group do in terms of suicide? What services are available with your group?
So in addition to our suicide prevention and awareness, things that we do in the community and education, kind of our focus of specialty is postvention support. So we have what is called our LOSS team. It stands for Local Outreach to Survivors of Suicide. And we partner with local law enforcement, and we are dispatched by them when there is a death by suicide, and we arrive on scene to begin working immediately with the families. We offer various kinds of support to the families. We work with them for a minimum of 1 year, helping them through that first year of that loss. We teach an 8-week class on understanding your suicide grief. We hold an annual weekend retreat for survivors of suicide. We also host a monthly support group for anyone 18 and older who has lost a loved one to suicide.
Tiny DeCory is the co-founder of the Bear Project on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Tiny, the state says Oglala, Lakota County has the third highest suicide rate in the state. So the suicide rate of Native Americans over the past 10 years, 2.6 times higher than the rate for whites. In 2021, the rate surged to 67.3 per 100,000 people, the highest rate ever. Now, you founded the Bear Project. What is that? What do you guys do?
Well, when we first started the Bear Project, it was be excited about reading. We were into literacy because we were graduating high school seniors on some of the schools, barely reading 3rd, 4th grade level. And so we set that we were going to go out and we were going to make a difference. So we started with the Head Start kids and going in, you know, literacy, helping them read and giving out picture books to mothers with infants. And then we realized, you know, we need to change our platform a little bit because we had rash of suicides. We had, clusters of suicides back in 2000. So we started, and now under the umbrella, suicide is just a part of it. And I want to say that our tribe, Oglala Sioux tribe, is really involved with the work that we do. So under our umbrella, we have suicide, we have drug testing, we have job readiness. We have, every night we have a Zoom meeting. We probably send out 150 text messages every night to kids that are still targeted as troubled youth. So the Bear program, we're 24/7 on the ground with our volunteers out there looking for kids and checking on families and providing food and the things that family needs. You know, we go into homes and we find there's not enough on the table, so we hustle around and we make sure we get food on that table. So there's just an array of things that the Bear program does. With our literacy, we have a Books and Ballers, where if they want to play basketball, baseball, we support all of that, and all they got to do is read books for us. And we have these little tiny libraries. The kids are in charge of those. They go around weekly and they put books into the, and that's all a part of their behavior health, their mental health. What are we doing for it? During COVID, when we had 19, 20 people in a home, they were quarantined. And it was maybe their 3rd time quarantine, so they had to all stay in that house. They could come out during the daytime in the yard, but back in when dark time came. And so what did we do? We took games, we took table games to their homes. We had them play with their kids, play Yahtzee, play Uno, and play all of that. And then we purchased tents, and we put tents in the backyard so the young kids who didn't have COVID but were under quarantine had a place to stay outside the house, but they were right in the yard.
Now, you talked about this being a generational thing. How important is it to start with the kids?
Oh, that's just it. But you got to win the parents over. You have to win the parents over. You have to have trust of the parents. It should start, everything should start at home. I mean, you can't blame, every time we turn around, the teachers are getting blamed. It's always the teacher's fault. But it starts at home. And we give parental classes, parent classes. But if we want our child to succeed and to move forward, we have to have the parents involved. And a lot of them aren't there. They're being raised by their grandma and their great-grandma. And so it is hard. It's hard because they're old and they're tired.
Amber Roduner is the clinical supervisor of behavior management systems. What kind of services do you guys have? that people can reach out to?
Yeah, I mean, we're the community mental health center for the area, even Northern Hills, Southern Hills, so all across Western South Dakota. And so we provide individual services, family services, services for children. We provide services in schools. It's really a whole array of different services. We also provide walk-in services. So if someone's in crisis, you know, we'll get a phone call typically letting us know, hey, they're on their way. And then we meet with them to decide what is it that they need in terms of the next level of care, so that they don't hopefully die by suicide. And so we're able to provide that service as well.
All right, we got to take another break. We'll wrap up our look at suicide prevention when we continue with this month's edition of Focus. And I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. September is Suicide Prevention Month, National Suicide Prevention Month. Tiny DeCory is here. She is the co-founder of the Bear Project on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Tiny, statistics show suicides in the state have increased by 50% over the last 10 years. So how do you turn that tide? How do you turn that back the other direction?
Sometimes it's hard, very hard, because that was yesterday, that's the past. And sometimes when we bring that, oh, how can I say this? We talk about it, but that's all we can do. We just have to move forward, and we have to change the things that we're doing to meet the needs of the family. You know, you talk about suicide. We try not to use the word suicide. Like my shirt has honor life. Life is sacred. So we don't use the word suicide as much as we used to, because we want the kids to live, and they all know what suicide is. We can go into a Native school and ask, do you know anybody who's committed suicide? And they all raise their hand. So we changed that. So on September 10th, when we're doing the walks and the standing on the corners and tying yellow ribbons on cars, we're celebrating life. All of our survivors come, and we have a campaign called I Want to Live. So the survivors are out there on that day, talking to people, telling them what they can do, but it's all about living. It's not about, you know, somebody who has died.
How much has that changed from when you were a kid?
A lot, because I don't remember suicide when I was a kid. I don't remember, because somebody killed themselves, they buried themselves, and you moved on. But I don't remember, because our parents were more involved with us. Our parents were more able to discipline and guide us. Parents can't do that now. As soon as you whack their behind, you know, the social services are right there. And so there was more. There was more, but there was less. But the computers, technology has made our world so small, and the influence from the games or whatnot are getting to our kids, and it affects them.
Bridget Marshall is the executive director of Journey On here in Rapid City. Bridget, how do you see what's the way to turn the tide, turn this around?
Conversation. I think one of the hard things, especially in the prevention world, and with, you know, the work that I do and that our team and organization does with families, is that ultimately it is someone's decision if they decide to end their life. And that's really a hard pill to swallow, but we have to talk about it. We have to reach out to those that we are concerned about. It's true, there's not always warning signs. So that is difficult, but we need to talk about mental wellness and how to take care of yourself and your mental health and mental well-being. And we need to promote that as a community, and as people that work in the helping profession, we do that. I think we need to be teaching our young kids about mental well-being and taking care of yourself that way. Just like we talk about going and getting a physical from the doctor, we need to be saying it's okay to go and get your mental health checked out as well. And you know, I'm a firm believer everyone should be in counseling at some point in their life. We all need perspective and support, and sometimes that needs to be neutral support and unbiased. And so I think having those conversations and focusing them on making sure that you are doing things for yourself that promote mental well-being.
Amber Roduner is the clinical supervisor at Behavior Management Systems. You deal with the treatment and counseling end of this. How do we turn this back the other direction?
a lot of what both Tiny and Bridget have said, absolutely. I mean, it is about figuring out how do we support that individual and how do we equip them with the skills that they need to be able to support themselves, and making that okay, you know, breaking that stigma of, you know, it's not cool to be in therapy and, you know, those kinds of things. And just providing the support to the people that also, I mean, speaking specifically about young kids, right? Making sure that we're providing support to the entire family, making sure everyone is struggling. And so making sure that support is there for everybody. And the part that we can do, even, you know, outside of therapy, is again just that idea of check in on people, let people know that they matter, that it matters to you whether or not they're okay and if they're struggling, and just kind of be there for people.
So what should you do if you are having suicidal thoughts or you know someone that you believe needs help? What do you do? Absolutely.
You talk. You talk to whoever it is that you trust. There's also the 988, you know, text line. You can text, you can call, you can chat. There's lots of different hotlines as far as here locally. Come into behavior management systems, walk in, tell us that you're struggling. We'll see you, we'll help you through that. If you're an adult, we've also got Pivot Point, our old crisis care center. So there's lots of different options in terms of that, but really it's speak up. Talk to somebody, let somebody know how you're feeling. Let them know that, you know, you don't want to feel that way anymore, and see how they can support you.
I think it's important to say too that if you are very concerned, call 911.
Absolutely.
You can call 911 for yourself, or you can call it for someone that you are concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny, for what you see out there, what do you want somebody to do if they're having those thoughts, or you've got a friend that you think might be heading that direction?
Call an adult. Call the police. Call the police department. If you're downtown and you see an officer, tell the officer. But it's important that you keep the lines of communication open. Mm-hmm. And if it were me, I would just be, are you contemplating suicide?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to harm yourself?
Right.
And you just come right, and sometimes that's all they want, because it's right here and they're ready to explode, and they'll just start crying.
Absolutely.
The emotions will come out and say yes,
yes.
Yes. So it's communication is really good. We text. We have chat lines. We play scavenger hunts with the kids, and it's just communicating and referring them to people that you know that they can trust. If you're into the native religion, we take the kids to the sweat lodge, and sometimes it's the first for them, so they go in there and they're able to pray and to smudge off. If they want to go to a pastor of the Baptist church, we'll take them there. You know, so on the reservation, they're really getting a lot better. Everybody's coming together. And even on Facebook, they'll say, if you're going to do this, I'm going to call Tiny DeCory. It comes right on Facebook. And I like that, because it makes me aware that somebody is out there contemplating.
All right, we're down to about our last 30 seconds. So, Tiny, how do they get in touch with your group if they need help?
454-0518. 454-0518. They can call us.
All right, Bridget, how about you? How do they get in touch with Journey On?
605-348-6692, or they can email from our our website.
All right, and Amber, how about you? How do they get a hold of behavior management if they want help?
Yeah, the main office here in Rapid is 605-343-7262.
All right, Amber, Bridget, Tiny, thank you guys for joining us. Again, thank you for joining us for this month's edition of Focus. Hope to see you again the first Sunday night of next month. Good night.